What's up, Internet? We are here once again as Magical Talking Jazz Hands of Justice, which of course means one simple thing. We got more treasure we have to explore. And we're going to start this off with some real treasure I've got. This is the, I believe, Bring Arts Neku Sakuraba, The World Ends With You figure. And I got this for this very segment, this show, for a few reasons. First of all, Neku here is a character I associate with myself a lot. The World Ends With You is a very special game to me. Well, the original. The remake this figure's for not so much, but it was a game that changed my life and how I see the world in a lot of ways. And this character reminds me a lot of myself back when I was an angsty teen because, you know, back then weren't we all? But, you know, he's basically me if he was anime-ized, and, you know, that to me makes him a very special, very personal character because he was, in essence, me. And the reason why I bought him was both because I have a great deal of connection to this character and I really wanted it, and I've never really gotten one of these like really expensive figures, but I think it's really cool, and this was the first one I ever got. But I got this for a second reason for this very show, and that is I don't script anything. I'm hoping that comes across right now, but because I don't script anything, I don't want to inadvertently, like, watch other gaming shows and take other people's jokes and stuff. Like, that's just not how I do things. So I actively don't watch game shows on YouTube or anything, back when I have, like, very little amounts of time to actually watch anything, because I don't have a lot of that anyway. But one thing I do watch is Gundam model kit videos. And one guy that I really like watching, and unfortunately he hasn't made videos in years, and that's part of the reason I'm inspired to do this, was a guy named Robert184 with 2 R's and 2 B's. Go watch his videos, they're really good. But his thing was, whenever he would come out on camera, what he would do is he would like have this Gundam Zaku mask. It's sort of like a digital sort of signature at the start of his videos, and I thought that would be pretty cool. So this is kind of both my take on that and a total homage to him, plus it was a figure I really, really wanted. This was actually what inspired me to go out and get those Gundam kits in the last video, because I had to order this guy and I had to justify the shipping. Now, I'm not entirely happy with this guy because, first of all, these figures are ridiculously expensive. I ordered this guy back when I had a job, which still has, unfortunately, not changed very much. You know, feel free to go hit up my Patreon, not so subtle plug there, but when I bought this guy, I had to pay up front, and you know, that's fine, but after they actually released it, I then had to pay again twice for some reason. Like, they charged me 3 times for this purchase, and I have no idea why, so I'll probably stay away from Ami's pre-orders and news section for a while, but their pre-owned section is pretty good, and that's where I get all my Gundams and stuff. But let's get into what we're all mostly here for, I would assume, which is, of course, the gaming. So let's start off, I think, with what I think a lot of people tend to consider to be one of their favorite consoles of all time, Super Nintendo. And I'm a huge Super Nintendo fan. I love the RPGs. RPGs are like my jam. And it's kind of my dream to own every RPG on the Super Nintendo. And unfortunately that means eventually I'll have to get a copy of Earthbound, but I'm slowly working my way down that list, and I got 2 for the Super Nintendo. Unfortunately, I had to buy them in town, so they're ridiculous. But this is Lufia and the Fortress of Doom. Let's see if we can get ourselves a better... There we go. And this is a fun little RPG. It's very, very basic, but it's a great game. And this is a pretty interesting little oddity, because when I tend to when I make gameplay videos, basically the moment I stop recording, I stop playing. This was a game that I kept playing for quite a long time. I ended up playing this game for about 5 hours straight after I stopped recording. That's just how much I wanted to play this. Unfortunately, I did end up buying this game in town at a local farmer's market, which is one of the few places you can buy games in town, and they charge quite an arm and a leg for it, $80, as it can show there. Let's see if we can get that auto-focused. Probably not, because autofocus is kind of a pain. But yeah, that cost me $80, which was quite a lot. I got this while I was there as well. This is one I've wanted for a while too. This is Shadowrun on the Super Nintendo. This is a Data East role-playing game. It's kind of like a film noir detective style game in its own right. Like, you wake up dead, And they kind of basically say, okay, well, your whole job is to figure out how you died, why you're back, and what's going on in this world. And that's fascinating, but if you watch the gameplay video, you can kind of see that I get completely lost in this game, and that's because this game is not very, very clear what you have to do in it. I got to a point where I got a phone number and I figured I had to call someone, so I went to the phone that was next door and they said I had to insert money. I couldn't figure out how to do that, so I figured maybe I had to go to a different phone, and all the other phones didn't seem to work, so I don't know. This is a game that I got completely lost in, but it's an interesting game. I think, from what I played of it though, I think combat really hurts it, because you have to like take out your gun and then you kind of have to like aim with a cursor, and it doesn't really work all that well from what I recall. It has been a little while since I played this. I'm not gonna lie, the combat and like just how lost I was kind of turned me off this game entirely, but this is a pretty hard to find game, and like Lufia, I got this in town for about the same price, 89 or 89.79. I know how math works. But Lufia is a game I was really excited about and was justified. Shadowrun, maybe not so much, but Lufia 2 is, it's one of my more wanted Super Nintendo games. Okay, so these next two Super Nintendo games, these I got thanks to my wonderful girlfriend. Again, I've mentioned this before, I think, where we go game hunting and she goes to like Facebook and I'll go to like eBay and we'll try and find games just to collect and stuff, and she found a seller who had a couple Super Nintendo games I really, really wanted. Weirdly enough, his pictures of them were boxed. These are just loose carts, which is a little weird, but there was a few he had. He had like a bunch of different Street Fighters, which who cares? He had the Twisted Tales of Spike McFang, which I attribute to being like the most obscure North American release on the Super Nintendo, but man, is it a cool game. I didn't go for that, but there's a reason for that, unfortunately. I have a copy on my way. My girlfriend actually picked it up for me for my birthday, but unfortunately, the seller's been slow rolling her for quite a while, so we're all kind of upset about it. But hopefully we get it soon, because I'm excited about that. But she did get me these two games, or rather, she pointed me in the direction and I got them. But we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. And this is one of the coolest beat-em-ups I've ever played. The only one I can think of offhand that beats this is Guardian Crusade. No, what is it? Crap. It's the treasure one on the Saturn that's too expensive that I'll never get. Guardian Legends. Guardian Legends? No. Crap, I'm gonna get it, and like once this video's over, it's gonna just drive me crazy what it is, but you can get it on Xbox Live, and that's why I've been playing it mostly on, because I can't afford a Saturn version as much as I want it. Guardian Heroes, there we go. It's sort of like a sequel to Gunstar Heroes, but it's a beat 'em up in medieval times. Great game. This game was the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game I've ever played, and I've got kind of a fascinating history with this, because I played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 on the NES at my uncle's. It's one of the few NES games I played back in the day. And there was this kid I knew who was a complete jerk. He ended up stealing a bunch of my stuff, including a lot of my games. And he somehow got me to play the original, thinking it was the same one, and it wasn't. The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game was really bad. But I saw this at my local rental shop once, and I wasn't sure if it was the one my uncle had, or it was the one that that jerk made me play, but it was actually neither, and it turned out to be the best beat-em up of all time. And I'm a huge Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan from back in the day. Before I started renting games, basically I just rented the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles VHSs over and over and over. And this is a great game. I love this game with a passion. It's just overall a very solid game, and that was about, I want to say, like $30. Now, what's interesting was, like I said, they had Spike McFang, they had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they had a bunch of Street Fighter games, they had Spike McFang, which we didn't go for because, you know, I already have a copy, even though I don't have it. But there was one other game I was really curious about. They had Gargoyle's Quest, and I wanted it for so long. And unfortunately, he sold it just before. So imagine my surprise when a few weeks later, this shows up at my door for free. I guess the deal was the seller understood that I wanted this as well as TMNT, and I asked about this, and he said, no, unfortunately I just sold it. And I was kind of sad about that because this is a pretty rare game. All the games in the trilogy are really rare. And this tends to be like considered the pinnacle of them, I suppose. But I guess the guy who bought it from him just sort of like pulled back at the last minute, so he just decided out of the kindness of his heart to include it for free. Because I paid like $35 for Turtles 4, and I got Demon's Crest at no extra cost, which is pretty amazing because this is a great game. This game costs like $100 because everyone charges way too much for everything nowadays. But this one's actually a pretty uncommon game, and to have it is kind of a big deal to me. So I'm quite happy I've got Demon's Crest. Now, we're done with the Super Nintendo stuff, but I figured we could jump the tracks as I bump the camera like a total professional, and go to the opposite side of the gameplay spectrum with Genesis, starting with, well, it was one order, but we're going with Pirate Carts. We have this guy right here, the 5-in-1. And as you can tell, it has the Jungle Book. It has some kind of nonsense involving Baloo, I guess Tailspin. I never really watched Tailspin, so I don't really know. We got Bare Knuckle 3 down here, and that's a big deal because while that is Streets of Rage 3, the Japanese version actually has extra content and levels that the English version doesn't, including one that had like motorcycles and stuff. In fact, if I recall, there was some game magazine that actually took photos of this saying that they were in this English release and they were removed, and it confused everyone. We also have Super Battle Tank and Evander Holyfield's Boxing. Yeah, rock on. But while I got this in a box of 4 different Genesis games, none of them worked out of the gate, and they were all really weird. Like, this one feels like it's falling apart, and there's actually a couple that are like that. But, and my camera's flashing, so I'm not sure what that means. Hopefully we didn't cut any information, but yeah, they all didn't work. I had to actually go out and like clean them and like reset the pins and stuff. Some of these I actually had to kind of glue together because they're actually falling apart, but this one was interesting. And that set of 4 cost me $15, and for one Pirate Cart, that's not too bad. Pirate Carts tend to cost about that much anyway. But next we have probably the one that justified the purchase, and this one's got a really weird cartridge design. This is Kadesh on the Genesis. I'm going to just focus, because autofocus doesn't seem to be doing a thing. And as you can see, it's kind of got like these weird curves on the side. I don't know what that is, and the label art's totally stretched out. You can tell it's not an official cartridge. But Kadesh is a Genesis game I've got a lot of connection to. Because as a kid growing up, I didn't get to spend a lot of time with my parents. They basically just pawned me off on any number of babysitters where I usually got bullied and harassed by kids older than me, which was crappy. But they all had Genesis games, and they all had this game, which for the longest time I couldn't remember the name of, and they all had the terrible, terrible Heavy Nova, the worst game on the Erath, as I once called it, and I stand by that. Kadesh is a well, it's kind of like Roston, I guess. It's a big side-scrolling hacky-slashy sort of RPG thing that's very arcadey. It's very difficult. But the thing is, the Genesis version, while this is the one I'm nostalgic for, is by far the worst version. Because the original arcade version had a grand total of 4 playable characters. Let me get my hand in there. And they sort of went on a spectrum of easy to hard. You started with like a priest who had like a mace that flew across the screen. You had a ninja who threw knives. You had a wizard who could cast spells but was very weak, and you had a warrior who was just kind of crap in all regards. Well, when they ported it to the TurboGrafx 16 PC Engine thing, that I still don't believe actually exists, they cut the best character. They cut the priest, so now you just have the ninja, the warrior, and the mage. And then when they put it on the Genesis, guess who else they axed? If you guessed the better character of the 2 that were remaining, you were right. And that actually makes it a very, very difficult game. And this one's interesting because it actually has English on the back. I don't know how well that's going to show up on camera. Again, let's try and focus that in. Yeah, it's got English, whereas one of these, yeah, this one right here. This one has like, let's see if we can get that in focus. Come on, focus. There we go. Appears to be in Russian for some reason. I don't know. But I ordered these out of the Ukraine, so who knows. Okay, next we have the magical, mystical, mystery card of destiny. I had no idea what this is. The seller had no idea what this is. It's got nothing on the back, got no identifiers, and it's just Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. But this was basically just an extra gamble. It's like, I had no idea what this was. Maybe it's something cool. It's Moonwalker. Hooray. It's a game I never really aspired to own, based on someone I never really cared much for. But this one's kind of interesting. This is Sonic 6. And I know what you're thinking, but weren't there only like 4 Sonic games on the Genesis? 5, I guess, if you want to include both versions of Sonic 3. Yes, there were. This is an unofficial game. In fact, this is, technically it's called Sonic Jam 6. Not to be confused with the excellent Sonic Jam, or the excellent Sonic Jam preserves that were given away with Sonic Jam for the Saturn. This is basically Super Mario Brothers with Sonic for some reason. It is weird. It's not even the only Super Mario Brothers game on the Genesis I know of. There was this weird one that was based on this Tom and Jerry, this Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers game called Squirrel King. And this one is probably even worse than that, but it's interesting. And the box art here is actually taken from promotional stuff from like Sega newsletters that were later put onto like a PC disc for like backgrounds and stuff, and would later show up in pretty much every Sonic compilation as like just promo stuff. So if I recall, you could see this on like Sonic Mega Collection. You could see it in Sonic Jam, the actual Sonic Jam, the good one. It's interesting, and I like the box art. And again, it was in a set of 4 for $15, and let's just be honest, I bought this entirely for Kadesh. Okay, what do we have next? We don't have a lot of time left on it, so I'll just pick from a very, very small one, and we'll go with my favorite console, and unfortunately the only game I got for my favorite console. We have Magic Hoppers. And Magical Hoppers over here is, let's get that into focus, hopefully. I don't know why autofocus isn't autofocusing today, but it's not. Magical Hoppers, you would actually recognize this if you knew the North American like PS1 library. We got this as Pandemonium. As you can tell, if you're familiar with Pandemonium, these two characters do not look like the characters from Pandemonium, and that's why I wanted this version. Because this version was released in Japan after we got Pandemonium, and they changed the 2 main characters, and that's it. And it's way better for it. You've got this girl who's got like this big poofy cloud tail, and you've got this guy who's trying really, really hard to be cool, as opposed to a bizarre court jester and the most generic looking woman ever. Still Pandemonium, but it's very, very good. And what's interesting about Pandemonium and Magical Hoppers is the version you want is actually dependent on the console and the release. Like, if you want Pandemonium, you could get the Saturn version, but it won't run half as well as the PlayStation 1 version. Whereas if you want Magic Hoppers, you want the Saturn version, because not only does it run better, it has a fully animated opening intro, which you can see on my channel because I've got a video up on it. And the PS1 version had to deal with production stills of that same cutscene, so they look a little crappier. Basically, if you want the Japanese version of Magic Hoppers, which is the version you want the Saturn version, which costs about $10 more. But this was a game I wanted for a long time because I saw a picture in a magazine a long time ago, and I've been trying to figure out what that game is, and I still don't know what it is. And I thought this might be it. It's not. The only thing I know about that game is it was in a magazine that had a article on Guardians Crusade, and on the opposite side it had like a coupon for Pokemon Origami, because me as a kid decided to save that coupon in his dresser drawer, to which I still have today. So hopefully I'll find that magazine and I'll figure out what that mystery game is. But until then, I've got Magical Hoppers, which is, well, it's Pandemonium, but better, basically. And it looks like we are running out of time on the camera, so I will be back after a quick memory card dump. Alright, it's been about an hour. I just had some lunch and formatted my cards, so we should be all right to continue. But what's interesting to note is while I was just going through my stuff, I realized that I actually took out like 4 games from the box I used to sort games I got this year for Game of the Year stuff, as well as for this now. So we'll start with them. So we got 4 import PS3 titles. I guess we'll start with this one. This is Gundam Battlefield Record UC83. As soon as we get that focused, there we go. And I'm honestly surprised it took me this long to get this game, but it's because I'm an idiot. So here's the deal. If you look at this box art, it looks suspiciously similar to the Japanese Dynasty Warriors Gundam box art. And that's what I thought this was, and it's not. As I understand, this is basically like an improved version of Gundam, what was it, Crossfire? Target and Sight? Whatever it was. That Gundam game that was a PS3 starter launch title. That was terrible from what I understand. I don't know, I've never played it. I've only ever seen one copy. I'm going to have to get it at some point, I guess. But this game is really cool. Best way I can describe it is sort of like if you took that terrible Gundam side story compilation and you made it good. Because this is a third-person shooter Gundam sort of hacky-slashy thing. And it's really, really a lot of fun. All the mobile suits seem to have different weights to it, and they actually feel like they have weight to it, as opposed to, you know, just being people made out of, like, wet newspaper like the Dynasty Warriors games. This game's really, really fun. I like it a lot. Next, we have a bit of a disappointment. We have Another Century Episode R. And this is basically like the other Another Century Episode games. It's an amalgam of all the famous mecha anime out there. You've got Macross, you've got Gundam, you've got some Code Geass with the weird Lancelot with the striker pack, and not the awesome one with the wings, which I'm really bitter about. Having watched Code Geass recently, I really like the Avalon. I love that suit. But yeah, it's not as good as the other Another Century episodes, the two that I've played anyway. This one's just kind of there. It's got a terrible camera, and it's just not very enjoyable, unfortunately. Moving on, we have another Gundam game, and it's the only one out of these four I've not played. This is Gundam Unicorn, the game. And I'm not a big Gundam Unicorn fan. I'm honestly not. I think the Unicorn Gundam is one of the blandest Gundams ever designed. I hate the main character, but I really like the side suits from Gundam Unicorn a lot. And as I understand, there is a mode where you can basically like create a custom team of like all the grunts and stuff, so I'm totally going to do that. Plus my boy the Stark Jagen's in here, which is like my 5th favorite mobile suit of all time, so I'm excited for that. But I got this because, first of all, it was very, very cheap. It was about $5. And I wish I could tell you who, I'm sorry, I totally forgot who this is, but I want to say 2 or 3 years ago for my Game of the Year list, someone said this was their Game of the Year. And that made me really, really want to play it, so I'm very, very excited to try it. I might stream it sometime, I don't know. I'll think about it when I get some time. And finally, we have this one. This game has had like 4 different names, from what it was listed as for the sale to what it's listed on like GameFAQs and stuff. I believe this is Yukio XI, which is a sort of kind of Way of the Samurai kind of game, although it's hyper stylized. You've got like this neat ink brush style where like when you kill an enemy, it just freeze frames and then hits this ink brush style. It looks super cool. The game itself has some really terrible English, some really terrible like attempts at English with like Japanese voice actors, and some really awkwardness to it, but it's interesting is a good word for it. I've never been the biggest Way of the Samurai fan. I've only played 3 though, and I thought it was good, but it felt like the world was way too small, so I don't know, but that game's at least interesting. Let's see, next I think we'll go with these guys. So, I'm a big Medabots fan, so I'm quite proud to have this. This is Shingata Metarot Kuwagata. This is a game that a lot of people hate because of the character designs, which, I mean, if you're familiar with Metarot, that don't look like a Metarot. That's supposed to be Rakusho, and, yeah, no, it's not. This is also one of the most expensive Metarot games out there. It's this one and Metarot 5, and I have both now, so I'm very excited. But I got this boxed for 1 penny. I have no idea why. This game normally goes cart only for about $60, but I got this super, super lucky, and it's basically like the very first game. Like, in terms of structure, I'm pretty sure it is basically just a remake of the first one. Except they changed a lot of stuff. They've removed Night Medabots, which sucked because Night Medabots were just entirely broken in the first game. They were amazing for it. And they added a weird art style. But the gameplay, in terms of, like, how it runs, is not dissimilar to the English Medabots RPG that we got, which was a remake of the second game. So it runs okay. But it's just weird looking, and they got rid of some of the most fun aspects of it. But I'm trying to collect all the Japanese Metarot games, because we only got like 3 in English. And I'm still missing one of those, but out of Japanese ones that we can play on systems that are region-free, I am now only missing, what is it, 2? I'm missing the DS game, and I'm missing the English Medabots AX. And I'm trying to collect all the Kuwagatas because Rakusho's kind of my boy. So we're working quite a decent way around that. And, you know, I think it's a fun series. I like Metarot. It's a fun little RPG series. Speaking of, we have Metarot R, because I have an import PS2. And as you can kind of tell from the difference, this guy is supposed to be that guy. No, he's not. He should be, but he's not. This is a weird sort of game. It's basically the Medabots 2 game on the PS1, although there's some weird character design differences. Like, one character has, like, purple hair when they should have, like, red. You start only with the Rhinoceros Beetle Medabi over here, and as someone who plays exclusively Rakusho, that throws me off a little bit. And I gotta admit, playing with Medabi, he makes starting a game way easier, because he's got a weapon on each hand plus a weapon mounted to his head, whereas Rakusho has a weapon mounted on each arm, with very little defensive capabilities, so they get destroyed real quick, and a support unit. And the problem with playing with the Kuwagatas like that is, from the start, you're kind of screwed, because one shot can take out one of your weapons, so you gotta take out your opponent fast, whereas Medabi, he can take a few hits. But the trade-off is, well, the Kuwagatas are way, way more like weak early on. They are better in the long run just because they offer support and they have very strong attack. So it's weird to play the other side, but that's Metarot R. And because I've got Metarot R, I got Metarot R Parts Collection. And the Parts Collection series is rather interesting because these are basically expansion passes. They existed for the first 2 games. In fact, the first game got 2 of them. The second game got 1. And the third game got 1 as well. I forgot about that. But the idea was that basically these are just an excuse to run into more individual Medabots that allow you to then transfer your data back to the main games. However, this one's really lazy compared to the rest, because the others were at least games. They had sort of a story. It was very flimsy, mind you, but it was still there. This one does not. It literally just lists 100 characters and says, okay, fight this guy, fight this guy, fight this guy, fight this guy, and you can go in whatever order you want. But it's literally just a round of fights without any real game around it. And then you can exchange points from fights for parts that are exclusive to this. And there's something really bizarre about this game, because you can start this game either with save data from Metarot R, or you can start without. And if you start with data with Metarot R, of course, you're just going to carry over whatever you have. So if you have it from the start, you've got your Medabi, and that's it. Whereas if you start without save data, you have, I believe you get a Medabi and a Rakusho out of the gate, plus a body for a support character, which is really great. So you're probably wondering, like, you know, why would you? Well, the thing is, if you don't start with save data from Metarot R, you can't transmit data from this to Metarot R, which kind of defeats the purpose entirely of owning this. Yeah, the structure to this game's a little strange, because it's like, well, I could have a better start by not carrying over my save data, or I could just not have everything I get in here go to the main game, which is the entire reason why I own this. So, I don't know, it's a little bit strange, I guess. But they're fun RPGs all the same. Okay, next we'll go with some newer stuff. These 2 games for the Switch I got just to justify Amazon shipping. We've got New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, which I've honestly still never played. I've been meaning to. I've been meaning to actually like do a stream just justifying my Switch ownership at this point, but not played this. I have the Wii U version, but this one has the little toadette that turns into a peach, and sometime after Nintendo stops supporting the Switch, of course fans are going to hack it, and of course Bowsette's going to be in it. Let's just be honest. So I'm waiting for that moment. But yeah, it's Super Mario Bros. I never played Super Luigi either. That was part of my reason for getting this, and I want to see how Nabbit works because, as I understand, you can't hurt him, which makes him a weird player character. But yeah, we got that because, you know, why not? And we got this other one, which, speaking of Guardian Heroes earlier, Code of Princess EX, which on the back, be the guardian of 50 plus heroes, and they even use the Guardian Heroes font up there. This is basically a new version of Guardian Heroes, kinda, but with entirely a Japanese dub, and actually I think the original Guardian Heroes might have had a Japanese dub as well, I can't remember, but it looks like it uses really, really low quality like 3D models and stuff, as opposed to like hand-drawn sprites, which I think is kind of a letdown a little bit. But this also includes a bunch of characters that were featured in that fighting game my brother and I played that one time, and that interested me. Plus I like Guardian Heroes, although it's nowhere near as good. Okay, and oh, I'm seeing a flash thing on my camera again. I think it's swapping to a new file, so hopefully we didn't lose anything. Next we have a game I have wanted for about almost a decade now. We have Fast Striker on the PS4. Now you're probably wondering, you know, it's a PS4 game. How have you wanted this for half a decade? Well, or a decade. Well, this was a Dreamcast game, and I believe it was also ported to the Neo Geo, and I want to say this was like the very first one that kicked off that whole remaking and making games again for the Dreamcast by fans, and that is why I wanted this game so much. And when I got a Dreamcast, I was so sad that I couldn't get a copy of this. And unfortunately, there's another game, I think it's even by the same people, called Gunlord on the Dreamcast that I'd like to get as well. And I hear that's getting a remake on the Switch, so I'm going to have to get that. But this is the limited edition that you can only get from PlayAsia. I got an email notification when it was coming out, and I immediately got it because, man, is it cool. I always wanted to play it. It's a really fun game, and it's one of the few games that I actually like play every single day just to get a little better. I mean, I do that with Punch-Out now because of Animal Crossing, which, go watch those videos, but there's very few games I will play every single day just to try and get a little better. There was this, there was Galaga Legions back when I had PS Plus and they gave it to you for free. For that like month I got it for free. And then there was Twinbee, because I tried to get really good at Twinbee when I was in college the second time, and I'm not good at Twinbee at all. And this next game I haven't played yet. I'm really excited to, though. This is Assassin's Creed Origins. I'm a huge fan of the old school Assassin's Creed. I love Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood, and after that it kind of falls off for me. But about a month ago I saw a sale on Assassin's Creed Origins and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And I was telling my girlfriend about this because she's a huge Assassin's Creed fan as well. And I was really waffling on whether or not I should get one or the other, because I don't have money, but I really wanted to play it, because these two I've heard great things about, and I've never had a chance to play. And she just said, look, I'm going to come see you. I've got a copy. I don't really want it anymore. You want to have it? And when she came by, she gave this to me. And I'm very excited to play it. But I'm playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey right now, so this is going to be after, and there's a lot left for me to do in Odyssey, but I'm excited about Origins. Okay, next, we kind of have to go back in time and give a little bit of a story just to intro these next two games. See, I didn't have a PS2 until well after the PS3 came out. And when I got it, there was one game specifically that I wanted more than anything, and that was a game called Skygunners. And my intro to Skygunners was, and my intro to PS2s was going out to a Blockbuster with a friend of the family's to rent a game, and I saw Skygunners, and I wanted to play that so bad. But of course it was his PS2, so I didn't really get a say. And instead we got Final Fantasy X-2 Charlie's Angels Edition. And that kind of annoys me. But many, many years later, I still remembered Sky Gunners. And one day on eBay, after I got my PS2, I went and looked for a copy. And it was in a bundle with a couple other games. There was a game called Dual Hearts. There was a game called Crimson Tears, which I mentioned in the last episode when I did show off some of my figures. There was a PS2 game called Graffiti Kingdom, which I've been trying to get for a very long time. It's the sequel to Magic Pendule, which I reviewed recently. There was a couple PS1 titles as well. Tail Concerto, Misadventures of Tronbon, and Team Buddies. And I think there was a few others, but I can't quite remember. Ooh, Trap Gunner was in there as well. And it was one of those things where I couldn't quite make the bid for it. I was off by like $10. And that was, you know, back when I was a kid and didn't have any money. Not that really anything has changed other than I've gotten older. Again, got a Patreon, go support it so I can keep doing these awesome loot videos so I can, you know, have awesome loot. But this all comes back to now because that was sort of my white whale for PS2 stuff. And, well, we're working down that list because I now have a copy of Crimson Tears. This is interesting because, as I said, like last episode of this I mentioned this game. And it was literally that day my girlfriend picked this up and got it to me as a Christmas present. And that's very, very special. She was very, very psychic about it because she didn't know about it, I don't think. I don't think I told her this story. Certainly not yet. So her to get this for me was very, very, very special. And this is an interesting game because it's a... It's a dungeon crawling roguelite sort of thing, but what's interesting about it is you play 3 different characters at once, and each of the characters plays a little bit different. They've got different like weapon sets and stuff, and if a character gets killed, your other characters can then run into the dungeon and rescue them, and I think that's a really cool idea. What I don't like, though, is, of course, going in with your other characters, the dungeon resets, so it's completely random again, which I think is a missed opportunity. I think they should have allowed you to sort of work on your sort of knowledge of what was set up and to try and remember where traps and stuff were. Unfortunately, that's not there, which is a missed opportunity. There's also a neat little overheat mechanic, because you're all robots, where if you overheat, you start doing, like, crazy damage, but you can be, like, killed instantly, from what I remember. It's been a little while since I played this, but I thought that was a really neat mechanic, and I've got some footage of this. It's a fun little game. I quite liked it. And speaking of that white whale of an eBay listing that I'm still trying to get all those games from, we got Dual Hearts. This was a birthday present from my brother, and that was very special to me. And like Lufia, this was one of those games that after I recorded, I played for about 8 hours straight afterwards. My best way to describe this game would be sort of like Psychonauts by way of anime, because with a little bit of like Legend of Zelda in terms of world structure and Skies of Arcadia thrown in for like world design. But basically you play as this guy, you go into dreams of other people to collect specific objects so that you can ultimately get a magical MacGuffin. And what's interesting about it, I think in terms of character design, is you've got a sort of like pig assistant to your guy, and this guy's like a renowned treasure hunter who's trying to use the pig's abilities so that he can get the ultimate treasure, and the pig's trying to use this guy's abilities as like a fighter to try and like achieve the same goal. So it's interesting that both characters are basically just completely horrible to each other, trying to use each other, but at the same time trying not to make it so apparent. They're trying to basically like appear friendly and nice, but they're totally attempting to use each other, and it's just a weird dynamic for characters, and I love it. And on top of that, you've got an excellent dungeon design. You've got tons of creative elements. I mean, at one point you had a level that reminds me very much of the Milkman stage from Psychonauts, where like the world twists around itself like it's a giant hoop. And like at one moment, like what was the ground beneath your feet is now the sky above you, sort of thing. It was very, very cool. And the next level, I was like in this yard, which was like a dream of a dog trying to collect meat for it. Weird, varied game, but really good. This has been one of my favorite games this year, I think. That's been a lot of fun, and I think I'm getting a end of memory card moment, so I will be back in just a second. Okay, so I do have one more game, but it's kind of tied to something else, so we'll get to that when we get to it. So I think we will move on to figures and stuff. And we'll start with the pretty special one, because Valentine's Day happened, and I had to get a present for my girlfriend. So, I got one half of the present here, she has the other half. But my girlfriend, she's a big fan of Hamtaro, and hence why I've got Hamtaro, the game. She sent it to me. And I'm a huge fan of Hamtaro now, so I saw an eBay listing for Hamtaro keychains. And we got a little Hamtaro ham right here. This is Hamtaro's girlfriend, if we can get that centered. Come on, focus. There we go. It actually came in a bundle with this and Hamtaro, and when she came here I gave her one and she let me keep the other. So now we have like a little physical connection with each other no matter where we are. These were a little bit more expensive than they should have been. The whole set was... Hold on. I'm tapping my finger like I am the touchpad on my camera, so I actually can work on autofocus. These were about $15 for the set of 2, but for a neat little cute gift for my girlfriend, I think it was well worth it. So we'll put little Bijou up here next to Neku. Next we have this was another one of those sort of similar to Code of Princess and Mario. It was one of those things I got to just bump my Amazon purchase up to a higher tier of better shipping that I still had to pay for, and I wasn't any better. But we got a Ridley amiibo, because why not try and hold on there just a little bit. There we go. Why not try and get a slightly more impressive amiibo? I haven't even played Smash since it came out, really, but my brother got one of these and I was actually pretty jealous because it was cool. And I tried to buy one of these when I did the stream for it when it came out, and they wanted about 40 bucks for it, and I saw this on Amazon for about 10, so I just thought, alright, well, it takes me to that tier of free better shipping that of course it doesn't, because Amazon's dirty liars, but it looked cool and I could be less jealous of my brother. So there's that. Let's not put him over there. He might eat Bijou. That might be a problem. Okay, going back to the guy who sells all those awesome figures like Bijou over there. We got ourselves a Gundam figure. In fact, we got a couple Gundam figures. We got everyone's favorite character from Gundam Seed Destiny, Shin Asuka. No, of course not. We've got my girl Mayrin. And who doesn't love Mayrin Hawk and her awesomeness? She had an entire episode dedicated to how amazing she is. And she's totally awesome. And of course, she's got clear hair here. This is a special edition version. There's a standard one that doesn't have the clear hair that sort of tapers off to look real. And, you know, I just like Mayrin. And it was Mayrin for $1. And, you know, autofocus is hard. But, you know, it was $1 and it was nice. And it helped, it was basically free shipping because I was buying Bijou. Next, we have 2 more Gundam figures. These 2 can be introduced at the same time, I think. I've wanted these 2 for a long time. I saw these way back when we got some gal pals for Sumeragi, as one of the beam sabers disappears on this. But we got a Federation girl and a Zeon girl, and as far as I can tell, anyway, these are supporting some kind of digital card game. Like if you look on the back, hopefully without messing up autofocus, there's the 0083 Stardust Memory logo. And I looked it up, and apparently these are like sort of like hosts for the actual card game or something. I definitely wanted the Zeon girl because I thought she looked a lot better. The Federation girl I don't care so much about, but these were about $5 each, and these actually go for a lot of money. These are usually like $80 to $100 each, so I got these for about, you know, $5, $10 each, plus they had free shipping. I'm thinking about taking like the beam sabers they're holding and painting them, so like she's got like a pink proper Federation beam saber, and I'm planning on painting this one orange maybe to make her like a heat rod, but I accidentally knocked this out of their hand. But, yeah, there's that. The next one we've got is this guy, which I think is pretty cool, and he's huge. We have a Dragon Quest robot. because Dragon Quest is awesome. This guy is just ridiculously big. Like, if I were to give sort of a size comparison to this guy, if you took a Dreamcast, tipped it on its nose so it was as wide and as tall as it possibly could be, it's about this size. He is freaking huge. He takes a huge amount of shelf space, but man is he cool. This guy cost me about $15, and I'm a huge Dragon Quest fan, so that's okay, but I initially went and looked for this guy for a completely different reason. I wish I could remember who it was. I'm sorry about that. But someone told me about this like phone app you could get that would let you play Japanese UFO catchers via webcam. And I downloaded it, and I got like 5 minutes of enjoyment out of it because my phone died immediately because my phone's terrible. But they gave me like 5 free attempts, and every attempt I made was on this one like giant metal slime figure. And I didn't get it, and I wanted to look up on eBay to see if I could find it, and I couldn't, but I found this guy. And the killer robot, that's really cool. I think that's really neat. So that's pretty fun. I'm not sure how this is all going to fit on screen. I'm going to have to move some stuff, maybe. Okay, so you'll remember from my last episode the Monster Hunter Lagiacrus Hunter, right? The Abyssal Lagiacrus Hunter? Well, here's the regular one. Complete with his weapons, which are, like, again, not 1 but 2 deluxe UFO catcher prizes. You'd have to get the weapons and the character separately, and altogether they cost a lot of money. Now, it's not as expensive as the Lagiacrus Hunter I already showed you, the Abyssal. The Abyssal normally costs about $250 or so. And this guy, if you bought him complete, would be about, maybe $100, $150. So he doesn't cost as much. He cost me about $10, though. It's one of those things that I don't think anyone really wanted to bid on. But 1 or 2 people did. However, what we have next, and these are the last of my figures, but man, is it definitely the best. I got to give a bit of an intro for these. Okay, so I saw these 2 figures, because again, I was looking up figures to try and justify the purchase of my bijou so that I could save on shipping. And I saw these 2 listed as unknown anime. And I'm glad they were listed as unknown anime, because if they were actually listed proper, they would have probably cost an absolute fortune. I ended up spending $10 each on these, and I was willing to spend, honestly, more money than I had. Because no matter how much these went for, no matter who else got them, they would not appreciate them half as much as me. I have Gotcha Force figures. We have number 181, good old Killer Girl, right here with her rifle and lack of focus, because focusing is hard. Let's see if we can fix that just a little bit. There we go. Focusing is hard. And we have Shadow Girl with her awesome sword over here. And anything Gotcha Force is rare and expensive. The game itself is worth hundreds of dollars at this point, which is ridiculous, but I didn't even know these existed. I know that the main character, G-Red, got an action figure, which I would absolutely kill for. And I know one of the villains, Deathborg Omega 2 or 3, got like some kind of statuette, but these little Gotcha Force Gashapons, these are amazing to me. And honestly, if they were actually labeled as Gotcha Force, they probably would have sold for hundreds, and I wouldn't have had a shot at these. Now, they're not all entirely great. Everything above the waist is like on ball joints and stuff, except for the elbow, which is like a weird pagan slot system, which is really awkward to try and pose in any meaningful way, which is why you can see my my Killer Girl up here. You can see she's just kind of got her arm behind her back. There's a reason for that. I couldn't get a good pose for her to save my life. I couldn't get her aiming down her giant killer rifle for the kill shot. And her arm kept falling off. So they're not the best quality, but these are, together, both of them, these are probably two of the single coolest things I've bought, as I try and autofocus with my nose because my My good old hands are busy holding these guys. But seriously, these guys are so incredibly cool, and I'm just so floored that I even found these. I mean, they are small, they are probably not worth half what I paid for them in terms of quality or anything, but out of everything I got here, I think in terms of figures, these two are easily the most important to me. Very, very cool. I love these guys. And I'll clear off this table once more to get into the last phase of this nonsense, because we've got a bit of a story to tell. Okay, so story time. My girlfriend came over, and she lives on the opposite end of the continent, so it's a little bit tricky to see her, but it was nice, even though it was 3 days. And while she was here, we went out around town, and we did a bunch of stuff, and we got a couple of things. The first thing I'd like to show off is a little bit tricky, so I'll apologize in advance for this, but this she brought with her, and she left with me, which was very kind of her. And let's see if I can get this in shot without it being too awkward. I'm hoping that'll do it. This is a Pokemon blanket with pretty much all the Eevee evolutions on it. And we got my girl Luna and Static Kling up there. You got pretty much all of them on there. It's a really cool blanket. It was really thoughtful for her to leave that with me, and you know, I quite like it, especially because I'm now starting to become something of an Eevee trainer, whether I like it or not. But while we were out, she knows how much I love Gunpla, and she wanted to build a Gunpla as well. She was really insistent on finding like the Master Grade 2.0 Freedom, because she loves the Freedom. The problem with that was, you know, she was here for 3 days, so it wasn't super realistic to think of building it, but we were going to try. We did not find it. But we went to a bunch of places over the course of those 3 days, including a comic shop called Comic Kazi. And this comic shop was like a comic shop in front, and then if you walked behind the till, because you could do that, there was like an upstairs portion that had a bunch of like action figures. There was like a downstairs, like behind everything portion that had a bunch of Figmas and stuff, including Gunpla. And while we didn't find the Master Grade Freedom, we found something that she was quite proud of. We've got ourselves the Lockon Stratos Orange Haro. And she built this in 1 day, and she took it home with her, and she did an amazing job. I'm very proud of her for this. And we both love Lockon, and she really loves the Haro, so to get her this Lockon Haro, that was just like the perfect gift for her. We went to a few other places while we were out there, and while we did see some stuff, we never did find that Freedom, but we saw a couple other things. And after she built that Haro, I was really impressed, because behind that shell of a face, there's a ridiculous amount of detail. So the next day we went out, and we went souvenir shopping for her family, because, you know, opposite end of the continent and stuff, whole different country, it's interesting for her. And we went to like this Asian market where we'd looked for Gunpla the previous day, where she went in and bought me this. The Mobile Haro Plot, which has a white Haro, which means I can give it like my own custom paint job, which is nice. And it's basically Haro with like this awesome mech. Now, I'd love to show you this, but it's currently being built, and I may have snapped this leg joint right here. Like a complete dumbass. I'm gonna try and find a way to fix it. Hopefully I can show it to you next time, because I have this really cool design for it. And, well, honestly, while I don't enjoy the idea of breaking my models, if I can create some sort of makeshift solution for it, I'm not going to say it's going to make it good. It actually makes the design that I'm building it around a little bit more authentic. But it's a neat design, and it fits right over a standard Haro box like that to save space. Now, what was interesting was that shop had a lot of really cool stuff in it. I remember, as I make a bunch of noise off screen, I remember when we looked in the window, we saw a perfect grade strike, and I immediately was jealous because I'll never be able to afford a perfect grade, but we saw that. We saw this giant, like, 8-foot tall Hello Kitty plush that if I had money I would have bought for her daughter, because it would have been really cool. But, well, they didn't have any prices for the Mobile Haro that she bought me. They did have a sign saying next to it, high grades were on sale. If you bought one, you got the second one for like 50% off. And that technically, I guess, qualifies as a high grade. So we went and we got her this. The high grade Freedom Gundam. And I mean, it's not the master grade she wanted, but I think she did a pretty good job building it. And I actually have it right here, because she left it here with me. As I slowly try and get it up here. And this little guy is actually really impressive. Hey, it stands on its own on the box with no real support. Cool. I'm not the biggest Seed fan, but I do actually quite like the Freedom design. I kind of want to get this for myself now, although this is, I guess, technically mine. But she built it over the course of about 2 days with a grand total of maybe 4 hours. And there was only 1 or 2 points where there was any real issue, and it was more an issue with the manual, like the inner armor for the elbows. It's not super clear how it's supposed to be put together, but she did a great job. And this thing looks absolutely stunning for someone who's never really held nippers. I'm really proud of her. This thing is super cool. Now, that said, I've got a few issues with it. The actual inner design for the feet doesn't really work, and the head is ridiculously loose. But I can tighten that. However, one thing that absolutely sucks is it's stupid back heavy. And I mean, that's more of a problem with the actual Freedom design than the actual model. But, you know, it's a cool little model, and I think she did a great job. And I'm really proud of her, and I wanted to show that off. Let's see if we can. And now we got one more model since we're all here. And I actually showed this guy off last time, kind of. But here he is complete. This is my Goof. As I try desperately to focus on it. And I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. I tried to do a candy coating job on him. And this is the first time I ever actually airbrushed anything, so it was a real treat to try and do. I don't think it worked super well. If you look here, there's a bunch of splatters because my airbrush just sputters. And the weird thing is, I think it's just because I've got a super cheap airbrush that has a compressor that's a constant 25 psi as opposed to one with a variable. Because, you know, I kept it clean, I kept all the fluid and stuff relatively thinned out, so it shouldn't sputter like that, but it did. But I think this guy looked great. It didn't quite get the candy coating effect I was looking for, but looking at it on the actual camera right here, as we once again focus on the center and not what I'm trying to focus on, you know, it still looks really gorgeous, and I think this is probably one of the prettiest Gunplas I've ever built. I quite like my Goof. But we're not quite done yet, because while she was here, because she's a huge gamer, we went and looked at a bunch of game shops. Well, a bunch, the few ones we could find here. Unfortunately, we didn't find much for me. Well, we did, but we didn't find much for me that I could afford. And that's the real trick now, isn't it? But one place we stopped by, we got her a copy of Anindo, Way the Ninja, which she saw right here on this channel, which you can go enjoy. And I suggest you do, because it's a great game. And we also got her a copy of Valkyrie Profile 2, because that was a game from her childhood. And it was one of those sort of situations where you couldn't really afford either, but it was sort of like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so I just went up and stepped up, and I got her both. But while we were there, they had a bin for free, I'm going to air quotes here, garbage. And I did do a little bit of dumpster diving in-store, and we got ourselves a Dreamcast controller that has a turbo function and some other crazy nonsense. Yeah, I do have a Dreamcast. It's not in the greatest shape. Both the eject button and the power button are stuck down permanently, and I really have to find a way to fix that. But a new Dreamcast controller doesn't hurt my feelings at all. Hopefully that's not going to knock everything down. And we also found, and I don't think this is all going to fit on screen, but yeah, I'm not sure I'll be able to show all of this, but I got as the bag holding it falls, an absolutely free copy of LEGO Dimensions. Because video games are garbage now, I guess. I've not played LEGO Dimensions, but now I've got a free copy. And what's even better is it came with the LEGO Dimensions portal thingy. as the freedom falls down. I keep wanting to call it the strike freedom. I'll get it. It's fine. It looks totally fine. Back heavy. Design problem with the freedom itself, as I said. It comes with a bunch of characters, including, I think that's Gandalf, Wildstyle, and of course Unikitty, as well as a vehicle or two. And most quizzically is this thing right here, which, if I turn off the lights, I can demonstrate, is like this random thing that when you hit it, it glows a bunch of times. And then it stops glowing. I don't know what this thing is. It's neat. Maybe I'll find a way to kit bash it into Gunpla. But, yeah. And that's everything we got this time. Again, I'm presently otherwise unemployed other than this channel, so if you want to support that, I'll be able to actually, you know, get some more games and stuff in the future. That would be nice. There we go. But, you know, my girlfriend was here. She brought some cool stuff with her. We went and saw some awesome stuff. We recorded a few videos. Those are great. You should go watch them. And we ended up having a lot of fun, and we saw a lot of neat things. And, you know, she built some Gunpla. She did it great. I built some Gunpla, and I snapped a Lego like an idiot. But, you know, my Gofa looks great. So, you know, there's that. Out of everything I got today, what do I think was my greatest score, so to speak? Well, I think it would either have to be Dual Hearts, like, again, trying to fit everything on screen as I hit my camera, or, of course, my Gotcha Force figures, because, you know, I just love Gotcha Force so damn much. Although this does lead me to question, are there more Gotcha Force figures out there that I don't know about? Because, I mean, if there are, maybe we'll have to find them and make separate videos or something on them. That would be really cool. God, those figures are cool. That blanket's really nice too, but, you know, even though I've got very limited resources right now, and, you know, this was significantly less time than the last one we made, we still found some cool stuff. We found some great treasure, and I think we did pretty well. And we got some stories out of it, which is part of the fun. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, subscribe to the channel to see more awesome stuff, including tons and tons of Gotcha Force footage. I think I have the monopoly on all the videos on the internet at this point, as well as some awesome Gundam footage. And if you really want to see more of these, help support the show any way you can. Take a look at my PayPal or Patreon. Help support me so that I can actually, you know, afford to make more of these, because stuff isn't cheap, and having no other alternative for work at the moment, that's a little bit tricky to keep doing this stuff. I'm doing my best, and I continue to strive to do more in the future. Like I said, I'd like to do these like every 3 months or so, but, you know, if you want to help support the show, definitely helps any way you can. And you get yourself on the Discord where we can talk about awesome things. As my camera beeps at me that it probably made a weird cut, I apologize. Where we can talk about stuff like cameras making weird cuts, awesome Gotcha Force figures, amazing work on Gunpla, which, you know, even though she built it, she left it with me. I think I'm going to try and paint it, and I'm going to talk to her about whatever custom paint job she wants, because that's really our Gunpla. She built it, I'm going to paint it. I think that's the plan. Boom. Romance right there. You could learn a lot from me. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.